O'Donnell is the next item.
Alas Caherly agus Ira to Farin of Falter Road or Mazin Gurumaigas the Kojama. A Hortud and Kes Talak Shaw, Minister, you're very welcome. The question in regards to this commencement matter, Minister, is very straightforward and does exactly what it says on the tin. It seeks to update us on government plans for the proposed referendum in hopefully 2019 to extend the franchise and presidential voting rights to citizens outside of the state, whether they be in the north or indeed amongst the global diaspora. And I think it's important to note the work of Senator Billy Lawless in regard to our diaspora community, but to note too, I think, the growing consensus amongst a broad shade of political civic nationalism in the 6 counties, who I know have raised this directly with the Taoiseach and government in terms of their engagements with him up until this point. So it's an important issue. It's important within its own standalone context, Minister, but it's particularly highlighted, I suppose, within the context of Brexit and the jeopardy that hangs over us as citizens in regards to that. So hopefully you'll be able to provide us with an update, and I appreciate your time, Minister.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Acting Chair, and I'd like to thank the Senator for raising the issue. It's an issue that has taken up or been part of many of the discussions that I've had over the last 12 months in the Department, and has been prominent and will be more prominent over the next 12 months. The Senator and a number of others in this House and the other House have been strong advocates for extending the franchise at presidential elections to citizens resident outside the state. The Government decided on the 7th of March 2017 to accept the principle that the main recommendation of the 5th report of the Convention and the Constitution, that citizens resident outside the state, including citizens resident in Northern Ireland, should have the right to vote at presidential elections, and that a referendum would be held to amend the Constitution to give effect to this. This decision was announced by the former Taoiseach in Philadelphia on the 12th of March 2017 and received a generally positive response from Irish citizens both at home and abroad. Following the announcement, an options paper jointly prepared by my department and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade was published on the 22nd of March 2017 to inform public debate on this significant policy change. This options paper also provided a focus for discussion at a dedicated session on voting rights held at the 2nd Global Irish Civic Forum on the 5th of May 2017. The forum was attended by a wide range of representatives from Irish organisations abroad, including groups who have been campaigning actively on this issue for a number of years. Senator Lawless was mentioned, and other groups indeed. Participants welcomed the opportunity to have their say and emphasised the positive role that the Irish abroad themselves would play in achieving progress on this issue. I understand that there appeared to be a broad understanding amongst those present at the forum of the importance of due consideration and preparation being given to the option to be chosen and to the wording of any amendment of the Constitution that would be put to the people in a referendum. There was also a broad acceptance that the legislative and administrative changes involved means that it will not be possible to have voting from outside the state in place before any presidential election later this year, even if a referendum was held immediately and passed. At the forum, in response to the question which citizens should have the right to vote at presidential elections, the almost unanimous view of participants was that the franchise should be extended to all citizens resident outside the state. There was also broad agreement among those present that the extension of the franchise should not be limited to those who have left Ireland in recent years or within a certain time limit. Lastly, there was a recognition among those in attendance that introducing a requirement to hold a valid Irish passport would be a reasonable criterion for eligibility. In light of the views expressed at the forum, my department and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade are working methodically and carefully through some of the details that could arise in respect of the various options, with a view to bringing a report to Government that will assist in identifying the preferred option to be put to the people in a referendum. Preliminary work has also commenced within the Department on modernisation of the voter registration process, which will facilitate those eligible to vote to exercise their franchise from outside the state should a referendum be passed by the people in due course. As the Senator may recall, the Government announced on the 26th of September 2017 that it has agreed indicative dates for the holding of referendums in 2018 and 2019, subject to the timely passage of constitution amendment bills by each House of the Oireachtas. Included in the list is the proposed referendum on extending the franchise of presidential elections to Irish citizens resident outside the state, which is intended will be held on the date of the local and European elections at the end of May 2019. Against this background, my department will, in consultation with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, bring forward an appropriate constitution amendment bill on extending the franchise at presidential elections to Irish citizens resident outside the state in good time for the holding of the proposed referendum at the end of May next year.
Okay, thanks, Minister. Senator, do you want to ask a
Very,
supplementary?
very briefly, Les Caherly, and can I thank the Minister? For me, he won't be surprised to hear that the last two paragraphs are the key ones, and they are indeed, they usually are in my experience, all right. And the detail contained there, Minister, is very important. And I think what you'll find, and you're right to acknowledge Senator Lawless and his work with other organisations. I myself have majored on this issue since coming into the Seanad as well. And I think what you'll have found in that experience has been a willingness to work collaboratively to try and ensure that this is done speedily, but it is done right. So I think within the context, because we have heard, understandably, over the course of all of the contributions in relation to this matter, that the work is going on by officials, and I wish them well in those endeavours, because we do need to get this right. But, Minister, I think it's important as we come to the stage where we hope to bring that legislation to the Houses, that we have maybe one last round of engagement with those civic and representative organisations, whether it's people in the north or people amongst the diaspora. So perhaps through myself and Senator Lawless, whether over the summer recess or shortly after, we'll get the opportunity to talk to you and your officials on that.
Okay, thanks, Senator.
Just briefly in response there, I have no problem taking you up on that offer at all. There has been a number, this is one of those issues that's rumbled on for a number of years, and there has been several meetings. Myself and Minister Phelan met just last week. This commencement is very timely, and there has been a general acceptance in the considerations prior, including the forum, but also prior to the forum, there was the possibility of a time limit being put on citizens that they would have the right to vote if they had lived in the state within the previous 5 years or whatever. And it was just felt that that was too messy. How would it be policed? And if people are Irish citizens and have an Irish passport. But there are still other complicating factors. And I've met with a number of the groups, particularly in London and Britain, over the last few years. There's also the issue of voting centres. Where will they be held? In many countries, it's consulates and embassies, but there's also the possibility of postal voting. So there's a lot of work yet to be trashed out, and myself and Minister Cannon will certainly meet with any member of this House, including yourself, Senator Donald, on this particular issue, because it is going to go to the referendum of the people next year. That's very much the plan of government.
Okay, thanks, Senator, and thanks, Minister. And we come to the